All right, welcome, welcome. So excited to be seeing everyone, especially as we close out the summertime. I'm really excited. My name is Jim Shao. I'm the founder and president of Mason. I'm really excited today to be hosting a panel of wonderful influencers across many different industries to talk about how wearables are impacting our businesses today. So, with that, I'd love to start with Nick. Could you share with the audience your name, your role, and the company you're at?
Now can you hear me? There we go. My name is Nick Magana. I'm with Southern California Edison. I'm the ergonomics program manager for the company. We primarily focus on sprains and strains in my area, also looking to leverage wearable technology, either helping us in understanding the issues with stress placed on the body, maybe using sensors, but also exoskeletons that we might be more of a solution to reduce fatigue. And also looking to integrate wellness into our approach. So kind of merging traditional ergonomics with wellness factors.
Hi, everyone. My name is Marisol Barrero. I am currently the Global Ergonomics Manager for Amazon Web Services. I've been there a little bit over a year. Before that, I was with Toyota Motor North America, where I really started my wearables journey. So most of my work was there, starting in 2016 with exoskeletons and moving on to wearable sensors and XR world. I'm also the co-founder of the Automotive Exoskeleton Group, which is way beyond automotive. So a lot of aerospace companies, protein, just many different things are in there now. And in addition to that, I was asked to be on the board of the Wearable Robotics Association just this year. So I'm kind of wearing a few different hats here. And then my background, I'm an ergonomist. I'm a certified professional ergonomist. So I'm, again, a safety professional, specifically ergonomics. So nice to be here.
Hello? Oh, hello? There it is. So now, I don't know how you follow that up. I'm Kevin Harrop. I work at a company called Altria out of Richmond, Virginia. I'm the senior manager of emerging technologies and innovation. I have a colleague of mine here. I'll put him on the spot so everybody can turn their head and look at that gentleman right there. So our team was put together because Altria, like a lot of companies, has been around for a while, and we realized that technology was changing a lot faster than we could keep up with it with our traditional means of evaluating technology. So we try to take an approach where we're trying to do things quick, check it out, and move on to the next thing. So a lot of that involves wearables. We had a lot of success checking out wearables and showing their value proposition during COVID, and hope to share some of that with you guys here today.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Julie Gilpin McMinn, and I'm a technical fellow for human factors and ergonomics with Spirit Aerosystems. We're a tier 1 supplier to Boeing and Airbus. We're an aircraft manufacturer. And my role is a little bit different than maybe the other roles on here. As a technical fellow, I'm the technology expert for my company, and I don't get to do the boost to the floor stuff anymore when it comes to doing the actual research, but I act much more like a consultant. And I'm not sure how many of you know what human factors even is or ergonomics, because not everybody gets it, but I'm actually a psychologist, but I'm also an engineer. So with my doctorate, I did my supporting area in industrial engineering ergonomics. So you look at the human's cognitive and physical capabilities, and you try to balance those with whatever system that's being developed. So in my role, my job is to tell engineers that their babies are really ugly. Because my engineers develop these fabulous things, or they go out and they find these new technologies, and they're really excited to go and get them implemented and out onto the shop floor. And my role is to evaluate those things on a consultant one-on-one basis and on a global scale. So I might be in Belfast or Prestwick or Saint Nazaire and say, listen, we need to change a few things, whether it's the cognitive part of it, where it's how you perceive that information, or if it's the physical side of it. So it's a little bit of different type of job.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Steve Labodzinski. I'm senior specialist at Con Edison in the R&D group. So we looked into exo, ergo. I'm sure you guys are familiar with all these words. and then also into sensors, right? Whether it's temperature, whether it's how people are moving, right? Directional sensors, and then also lone workers. So there's definitely a lot of different things we looked at. And also, you know, we kind of have, I mean, let me ask you guys a question, right? So how many of you folks think that a wearable has to have a battery? Excellent, because it actually doesn't, right? I mean, there's so many different things that are coming out, and one of the things that we're looking at is also things that are more customized to people, right? So one size doesn't fit all, right? So there's small, there's medium, there's large. Well, maybe there's a whole bunch of things in between. So I think some of the next steps and some of the discussions we'll have here will kind of focus on, you know, what's the next generation of wearables, right? And do they really need batteries, or are there passive, there's active, right? There's also intrusive, right? Versus non-intrusive, means something, exoskeleton, it's probably intrusive, right? Versus wearing a small device that you don't even know you're having, like either, you know, your watch right now, or even today, right? The cell phone, where 30 years ago, the cell phone was pretty intrusive. So we'll definitely discuss some of these. Give back to Jim.
Awesome. Thank you, Steve. So, after filling your tummies up with a 5-pound burger, let's get started with talking about 3 themes today. The first are the industry trends that you should definitely walk away with after this conference. The second is how these individual organizations are measuring their return on investment. And then third is thinking about what are the optimal user experiences so that adoption actually happens within the organization. So with that, I'd love to start off with the first question. What is that number one trend you're most excited about in your industry? And what do we need to know about it at the end of this conference?
Hello? This is on. All right, cool. Using AI and incorporating that into wearables, right? I mean, there's so much information that's being collected right now with wearables. What do you do with it all, right? I mean, who's going to sit there and spend hours, days, months, years, whatever it is, to discover something new? So we're definitely going to need some help. You know, what do we do with all this data? And what data is useful, right? Can we get something that predicts what an event? I mean, let me ask you guys a question, right? So if there was a questionnaire saying, hey, you know what do you want? You want your cell phone, or do you want your partner? You have to pick one or the other, right? So probably 80% would probably say, you know what, I'm going to pick my partner. Okay, I don't need the cell phone, but okay, maybe 90%, I don't know, 80%, all right. Right, but then when you start deep into the data a little bit, you find out, wow, you know what? 70% of the folks spent over 10 seconds to figure, to give us that answer. Okay, so what does that tell you? Yeah, so by having those analytics and having that information that, why did we get this answer is going to be very important. So I definitely see AI being a big contributor to the next generation wearables.
Hi, I'm excited about so many things. I actually, a little plug here. So I actually have my own case study, not right after this, but the one after that, where I'm going to talk about my excitement. But, but really, I just wanted to get in there that just everything is exciting to me in terms of what can be done to reduce those ergonomics related injuries. So I see the future. Exoskeletons started out as passive devices, very one-dimensional. They're becoming more active, powered, smart devices, and they're going to continue to go in that direction where they're going to support people outside of industry too. So think of the, aging, elderly, just, lower limb issues, walking, hiking, etc. So I think it's going to go way outside the industrial realm. Wearable sensors, I think they're game changers for me. I know there's a lot of privacy issues and a lot of data tracking issues that we need to overcome, but I think their potential for giving people personalized safety recommendations is just unfathomable. I know in ergonomics, we concentrate on assessing the job, and we can look at, one person doing the job, but there's, maybe 10 to 20 other people doing the job. But we're really only capturing that one person, right? We don't have time to look at all the other 20 people, yet they're all doing it differently. And we're all assuming that something is, low risk, possibly because of that one person, while everybody else has different techniques. So again, there's so much potential. And in the world of, XR as well, I know that's technically not part of our panel here, but the potential for training and for early design visualization and really for cementing those topics is again, huge. So I'm excited about it all.
I would say for utilities, I don't know, is anybody else working utilities here? We got one person. Okay, so fantastic. So, working with unions in the utilities can be challenging, to say the least. But I think with the safety in wearables is an opportunity to enhance the partnership. They're going to see that you're investing into this type of technology that helps to understand how the work is affecting their body, right? Because no one should be more invested into preventing injuries really than the person themselves who's doing the work, right? So if you can show that, hey, as a company, we're investing in this technology, we really want to understand how the work is affecting you, because we want you to go home the way that you arrived, which is safe and unhurt. I think that helps to build a better relationship with the union, and especially depending if your company's had challenges in the past with unions. So we've seen positive impacts from that and having those types of discussions, because again, the employees want to see that you're investing in them, and these forward-thinking technologies is a way to do that.
So I'm going to be the slight naysayer. Here I go. I always do this. I think it's really important that when we are putting these new technologies out in the shop floor, that we know that we're doing it for the right reason, and that we're not just blanketing it. Because when we start investing in these things, we have to understand what it's going to do to the other part of you. When we're talking before, I said we have the physical and the cognitive. So if I put something physical out there, like an exoskeleton on someone, is it going to affect anything else on them physically? Because it's a first do no harm. That's what we have to do. And is it going to change the way that they interact with their environment cognitively? Are you going to be able to be situationally aware? Are you going to have what situations do we need to put these technologies out there? And so before we start going out there and just blanketing new technologies, I get excited about it too. But what I worry about is people not understanding the process and just putting things out there because they're throwing a Band-Aid at something. I'm big into research. It's funny. Last week I was at a conference where I was the practitioner amongst a bunch of academics. And now I feel like I almost have to pull that academic side out and say, listen, have we looked at the scientific research that's being done on this to see if I put on a passive exoskeleton, it's helping me by supporting my arms, but am I activating any other muscles that wouldn't be activated otherwise? And I have to take that scientific view of it and see if there's a way to kind of temper the excitement. I know that for these technologies that I've been seeing out here, I'm excited about the ones that are low profile and you don't quite see them as much, and I think that's great. I think that's fabulous. But let's make sure that before we go start putting things out there that we know what we're doing.
I'll try to pair this all together.
I know, maybe
Julie projects well. Project quite as well. There you go. I'll try to tie it all together because my colleagues here hit on some really good points. So to me, it's personalization. That gets me excited. Everybody here probably has a cell phone in your pocket, and you probably all have a different set of apps and experiences that's personalized to you, which again, increases the broad adoption of that technology over time, right? So when you think about wearables, I don't think it's that perfect one. I think sometimes that's the fallacy that we fall into as enterprise practitioners. Put it out to bid, pick the cheapest one, which one passed the test, and go all in. And you miss out on so much that might not resonate with a particular crowd. So when you pair technologies and think about wearables almost like peripherals, and you think about having a broad ecosystem for everybody to play in, that personalization might be that final little piece that kind of makes it resonate and comes home. Health and wellness. I mean, that's across the board, not just at work, but at home too. If we could solve the privacy issues that Marisol was talking about, and I think some of the technologies now are touching on that, we might be a little bit closer to really recognizing the value and not having them so polarized.
Well, industry trends are great, but money talks. So if you were a VC, put on your VC hat and put out that $1 million checkbook, what are the products that you would personally put money into?
Well, let's pretend it's not my money and it's my job's money for a second, which is a harder thing to try to articulate and defend. Because because we're all technologists. We all get passionate about it. For me, you got to invest to see where something's going to go. And I think that's the spirit of any VC, is kind of, having to divest, a broad variety of investments that you divest to try to see which one's going to kind of rise to the top. So I don't know if, again, I'll hit that same point. Is there that one thing that I'm going to put my money behind and bank my kids' college tuition on? Nope. It's not there yet for me. Not to say it's not going to be there sometime, but that's probably a good thing that we have a little bit of variety in competition right now. So perfect non-answer.
Okay, now I'm going to sound like a hypocrite because I'm going to tell you this one. I think that some of the it wouldn't be for my guys in the shop, but maybe for people who are in assisted living situations and where we really want to collect that biometric feedback and see how they're doing. I really like the idea of making wearables not look like wearables and be just so inobtrusive to the person that they don't even remember that they're wearing it, because I want them to act normally. I don't want their heart rate to go up because they know they're being watched. I don't know about you guys, but my parents are getting older. I would love to know how many steps my mom does every day. Okay, she's not sharing that with me. All right, but I'd like to also know if there's a way to monitor her health remotely, and there is now, and it's wonderful because heck, you can do this with the rings. You can do this with earrings. I think somebody even told me the other day about. I hadn't seen that before. It's just really this unobtrusive type of technology. So for example, my daughter got married, and I did not wear my watch for the wedding, but I really wanted to because I wanted to know how many steps I was going to get during that day just to see. So yeah, something just unobtrusive.
So I think I'm going to look at it just a little differently. So I think there's so many great products emerging just on their own, wonderful companies putting things together, great users out there who are doing proof of concepts, trials, et cetera, trying to get it done. But what I think, and I primarily see this being in the Wearable Robotics Association in that realm. So there's not much coordination or long-term vision as collective entities working on all these products. So I would probably, if I had the funds, I would probably sink into, and I know there's some entities like ASTM, Exo Center of Excellence, and a lot of different entities emerging, but some entity coordinating the long-term vision for all these different products. Particularly, I worry about all these different products eventually making it out onto workers, and what are they going to wear? 10 different things. How are they all going to be integrated? So, companies just focusing on their own product, which happens quite a bit these days, right? You're, all in it for the sales. And of course, I'm sure there's a bigger vision as well behind it to help humanity and all that, but it could be probably improved in terms of where we go as a collective organization.
I think as the more of a, the program manager, I mean, if I had a blank check, that's almost what it sounds like. I think within our company, sometimes we like to throw money at things and hopefully problems just automatically disappear like a cure-all. And I get a little concerned with that thought that we don't give enough time for programs to mature and to yield the results that they need to yield. And so, that with the thought of like, here's the magic pill and everything's going to disappear, it never happened. So from my perspective, I'd like us to have a comprehensive program that's well-rounded, and I see wearables as either a way to either understand the problem better so we can take action, and whatever that action is, or for example, like sensors, or the exoskeletons is more of a solution that we've identified a problem, and we're able to assess the magnitude of it, and we deemed the exoskeleton a good solution to reduce fatigue. But also at the same time, I think what people on the panel are saying is that we need to be cautious of putting like an exoskeleton out there and making it not seem like I can, pick up a car now, or, we're going to misuse it. So there needs to be a proper, guidance when introducing a wearable out there like an exoskeleton, and making sure that it's that there's proper training and it's based in reality of what it can do and what it can't do, I also see that as well with the sensors. Making people understand what the sensors help you understand about the work and what it doesn't. Because I think the sensors are great, but I think you still also have to get the end users' feedback, because they're the ones wearing it, they're the ones doing the work, and sometimes we can become too reliant on the wearables. So I think those are some of the things that should be considered.
Yeah, so if I had a blank check, I would probably invest in nanotechnology, because I think it will solve a lot of the problems that are up here. Long battery life, right? Imagine having something that the battery life lasts 6 months versus a week or two, right? Imagine tiny little motors that could be embedded into clothing that could help, with exoskeletons. I mean, that's really where the technology needs to go. It needs to get smaller, it needs to last longer, and it needs to get basically non-detected, right? And with that said, now you could fit a multitude of sensors in a very, very small space, right? Then once again, kind of like, what do we do with this data? What are we collecting? But I mean, that's really where the future is. I mean, is if we can make this stuff smaller, last longer, and once again, not detectable. Imagine, my pants having 50 sensors in here. Maybe a little bit too much, but one day that's going to happen. I mean, it's not. I mean, I would say probably in the next 10 years, clothing with sensors will probably be a norm for us, right? Whether it's to monitor your sweat patterns, right? Electrolytes, that already exists. It's just not feasible at this point, at least for the normal people. So definitely, I would invest in nanotechnology, Jim.
That's awesome. Bringing textiles back to America. I like that. So I know a number of us are actually just getting started with our own programs within our own organizations. So love to hear from the panel. How are you thinking about measuring ROI? How do you put together these programs to win over the C-suite? What are some of the best practices that you'd recommend for the audience?
I'll start since I really don't have to deal with ROI. So my focus is really safety. In order to get funding for projects, we do have to show some sort of cost benefit. And a lot of those are assumptions, right? So if we put in a safety device, we assume that it's going to reduce, somebody getting injured, right? So there's some assumptions there. As far as how do we get people to come on board, when we start some of these projects, because if they're safety orientated, there may be some, privacy issues, right? So we start off with volunteers. We also make things anonymous. And anything that we could kind of, how can I say, blacken out, right, seems to benefit us as well. At the end of the day, you have to get the buy-in from people. You can't just say, hey, you know what, we're going to start this. I don't care what you think about it. No, people want to see data as well. I mean, that's the other big thing. So, we did something with ergonomics, and we had a weekly meeting to say, hey, this is, device 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever those numbers were. This is what we got. Have a information exchange with the people that are involved in that process. And then, as time went on, people actually opened up, hey, that's me. We're doing this task. And what's interesting too is that, like I said, we did it Wearables. And what we found out, there's one day where everybody had very high risk movements. And what we did is we found out they were doing this process, and we brought in a team to actually look at that process and how do we improve it. So once again, a lot of this stuff could be used not just to kind of preventive, right, but also to learn. Like, if we put this process in place, does this improve or minimize our risk factors? So, okay.
Let me add to that, because I'm also in safety, so the ROI, I guess, is a little bit different for us. I mean, I think for us, the real easiest ROI is that, like, if you have an exoskeleton, that it's being used, it's not collecting dust. I think that's been the big aspect, because I've been on at other conferences, other panels, and that's one of the biggest things. It's not that, yeah, you got to put up the case to buy the exoskeletons. The other one is like, well, we need people to use them. And so that's been, I think, a common theme that I've heard, is that they're buying the equipment and it's not being used. So I think that's one aspect. I think also, and then, getting the feedback from the end users, that they enjoy it. And again, that I think it's really about culture. So if you're adding to the culture and it's positive, they see that you're investing into them, I think that's going to pay off dividends at the end of the day. People are going to be willing to be more of a team player. You're just going to see work morale go up. I think there's a lot of those things that it's hard to capture as a single data point or as a financial aspect. So I think there's a culture aspect to it. And I think over time, again, seeing the usage of it, the maturity of the program, the way they're being used. I think for us, in the area that we've implemented the exoskeletons, and we haven't had a back injury since, because we have a lot of back exoskeletons. So, and I think roughly a sprain or a strain costs us like $60,000 to $70,000. So, and if an exoskeleton costs $8,000, it's a pretty good way to look at the investment. So
I think that there are two parts to the question, right? How to get started, and then the ROI bit. So how to get started. So just to offer a little bit in that area. So the key thing for these devices is really to start out very small and very slow, and really, do your proof of concept, do a slightly larger trial, have that clear progression, have those gates in place. What's going to make you allow progressing to the next gate? Involve the workers. That is so critical. So get their feedback super early on. What do they think of it? What do they want to do with it? What are their concerns and such? And have resources in place. So with these devices, they're so new. It's not like a pair of safety glasses that you can just, put them on, or safety shoes, and you just go, right? It's a program, and it's got to be a programmatic approach. You have to have the resources in place, whether it's your, producer of the devices helping you, whoever is in place to actually assist that process, or you will fail. So it's pretty simple. So you're not going to get buy-in. And then the second piece of that is the ROI. So being in ergonomics for 20 years. So again, ROI, it's like every conference, everything is about ROI. And I always kind of challenge that, right? In ergonomics, we always have to prove ROI, right? But I was challenged that by saying, well, we have little to no ROI in so many other areas of safety. So we, again, we're focusing on cost, right? So why don't we focus on an investment into safety, right? And not just like necessarily ROI. So there's many programs within the world of safety that have very, very little return. Control of hazardous energy, industrial hygiene, quite frankly. So a lot of these different things, a lot of money is put into these programs, which are very important. A lot of them have compliance around them, but you might have one injury, or maybe 10 injuries, not to downplay those injuries, but as compared to other areas like MSDs, musculoskeletal disorders, that are, very costly, very significant to people. So I just kind of challenge that. I look at non-lagging indicators. So I don't necessarily look at your injury outcomes, look at your worker discomfort, your, ratings of perceived exertion, how they feel, right? How are they feeling, safety, culture-wise, morale, et cetera. So those are the true things to focus on, in my opinion. The less injuries, that's icing on the cake, and it really should be.
First, Julia?
No, you go ahead.
So, I think everybody here touched on EX, like the employee experience. If you think about that ROI, you're investing in our employees, right? There's so many different things you can't pay with money. You can't buy morale. You really can't buy safety. You can really put a lot of good things in its place, but you can't buy the behaviors that you train and reinforce to achieve those goals. So, to the ROI question specifically, I think we kind of had a gift in the form of COVID of, we didn't know what those metrics were. We didn't know how to measure ROI on some of the technologies we were deploying to try to mitigate the pandemic. So one of the examples was a social distancing wearable that we put on our folks. And the way we tried to measure that was, let's reduce the number of close contacts, amongst our employees. And we started coming up with the weirdest things. And Steve had talked about it, like, finding things you didn't think about. Like, we thought around lunchtime, you'd see all these people getting together, and we didn't see that because we spaced the cafeteria correctly and people were cognizant of it. But around, 2:30 or 3, right before shift change, everybody was getting together in these weird times. And we didn't know where, because we weren't actually tracking their location. We were just tracking their proximity to one another. And it was the tool washing station. They're trying to get out the door and they want to get these things done. And some of those rules go right out the window. So it was a chance to reinforce the spirit of what we're trying to do is help you stay safe, you stay healthy. We can then stay up and running. Everybody's, in a better place. And they bought into that. They really did. And our folks in particular have a real sense of pride in their safety numbers. They don't want to see an incident number hit that board. So when, I walked into the building one time and I had some guy kept on pointing at me. He kept going like this. And I'm like, he said, "Where's your hairnet?" I was like, really, man? But that's how serious they took it. Like you're going to don the proper PPE when you're in their particular facility. They didn't want to get dinged on it, even from the smooth gentleman like myself walking through the warehouse. So, yeah, that point of pride, I think, and you're focused on the employee experience. That's the right way to measure ROI, not on a dollar sign. And Marisol couldn't have hit it any better when you're talking about how do you get started. Go talk to them. Go ask them how they feel about things. What are their frictions? What are their pain points? Because so many times it's that pass the message. By the time it gets to you, you might not have a really, accurate picture of what that is. So.
Thank you, guys. One of the questions that have come up quite often, I think, even just roaming the halls, is, you have so many different options. How do you decide what to focus on? How do you allocate your resources? And most importantly, that darn user adoption. How do you get that across the finish line?
Yeah, I'll jump back in if you guys want. You got to find those people who are nerds like you, man, who love technology. The guy who walks in the gal who walks in the door with a smile on their face every day, who are optimistic, who come to you with ideas and creativity. That's the best starting point for us. Is when you try to go, hey, let's fill this room up and you will, and this is going to work, or else. Like, yeah, good luck with that. Especially with a unionized workforce. That's just not a very smart approach in my mind. But how do we get started? I think I'm looking at my colleague now. We go through exercises with consultants and how do we grade technologies and how do we evaluate. I mean, the saying we try to use for our particular team is we don't really push on walls. We try to push on doors. So where we see something that we can quickly make some, momentum towards and make a difference, why not? That buys reputational currency. It buys good, morale with the folks in the factories and whatnot. So sometimes that kind of drives the conversation is where's the immediate need, where is the buy-in, and what's the attitude for that particular opportunity. So
I agree completely. I think that finding the champions is one of the biggest things that we can do to promote technologies. And when there are lots of different options available, doing your research into what it is that you actually need and what products are actually going to fulfill it the best is important. So for exoskeletons, our company partnered with the university to test 7 different types of exoskeletons to see which parts of the muscles were activated, where were they having the best support, which ones were subjectively found to be superior by the people who did the work, and then also did we have correlations between that and what was objectively being seen? Some they might like one better, but this other one seems to be doing the job better. So looking at the different types of products and the incredibly fast evolution of them, I think is a task in itself. I think we need to take that $1 million and hire more people to see if we can evaluate what's going on with these products that are coming out, because it seems at the moment you blink, something's changed.
So from our end, we're kind of lucky because we'll attend various safety meetings, and based on those meetings, we'll be able to kind of get some ideas. And then also people may actually offer us ideas as well. Like, hey, I saw this other utility company doing this, or I saw this product on a market, or I saw this, can you guys bring it in? Can we do a proof of concept? So we're very lucky that way. And there's also a lot of low hanging fruit too. I mean, I'll give you a great example. We just had a safety conference, and people were talking about, I'm driving a forklift in and out, so outside, inside the building. When I get back inside the building, I can't see because I'm blinded temporarily, right? So there's actually safety glasses that actually, do that. I mean, so do you consider those safety glasses wearable? Yeah, I would say so, right? I mean, because they actually do a function besides safety. So like I said, there's definitely a lot of low hanging fruit, but the thing is you really have to go out and, just mentioned here, and know your audience, right? Who really wants this, and who are the champions? Because if you're going to force this down somebody's throat, it's not going to work. It's going to backfire.
So starting out, right? So how do you do that? I would say dabble a little bit. You don't need to have anything big all at once. You should really, the thing that works is to have a really small proof of concept. So you can really tackle the various technologies, find a problem, see how it could support, have that quick win. And when you have a quick win in that area, really expand that further, right? So use that as your driver to really fund all the other ones that are coming, right? Excitement for senior management, for the C-suite, to have that early quick win that will propel the rest of your program forward. So you just really need to have some level of quick win early on. Otherwise, it may possibly fall flat depending on the organization. The other part of this, so in terms of champions, everybody's noted this. They're critical to have once you have some people that are very loving of the technology and want to talk about it, but really channel that, right? One of the coolest things that I did when I was in the exoskeleton program at Toyota is that I went around with a video crew to the various plants and I actually collected the team member feedback. So I, sat down with the various team members who had been picked by the safety folks at the plants, and they talked about how they felt, how it impacted their work, how it impacted their life outside of work, all these great things. And we kind of bottled that. We edited appropriately so that they didn't keep saying the same thing, right? And then use that as the training package for other folks at other locations. So if they're at Toyota, we use the shoulder exoskeletons as required PPE starting in 2019 for certain jobs that met specific criteria. So when those jobs came about through a new model launch or whatnot, this video regarding the team member feedback, and then of course, instructional stuff was played, and it was really useful. So that's really what elicits people's emotions and reactions. So I can go all day and tell you how I've reduced the force to install this part from 15 kgf to 3 kgf. Nobody cares other than the engineers, right? What really drives people to adopt something is somebody saying, wow, this is so much easier. Like it's made my world easier, my job. So, I mean, that's really what triggers change.
How many of you guys have grassroots safety teams and safety congresses? Do you have that one? Okay, I guess you guys are all gonna miss out everybody else. So and I think you guys, for Con Edison, I guess, so that would be a great place. People who are more than likely volunteered, unless they're voluntold to be on the team. Sometimes it happens. But, I think the common theme here was champions, and those are usually your champions, the people who are part of those grassroots teams who want to help improve the safety environment, the safety culture of where they work at. Introduce the idea there, and then be willing to accept that it will no longer be your idea. That's the best way to go. Let go, let it be their idea, let them take it and run with it, and then you help facilitate it and get it to the finish line. Give them the credit, and that's one of the best ways you can get the adoption.
Awesome. I know we're a little bit short on time, so I'd love to open up to the floor for some Q&A. I know some folks had submitted questions via the app, but love to hear from you. I got it. I feel like Bob Barker.
Oh, sweet. Thank you guys for this wonderful panel. You guys mentioned earlier wellness. Let's circle back to that. Obviously, a lot of injuries, cumulative traumas happen as a result of the individual's disposition from a health and wellness standpoint. And there's been traditionally some silo, formation around who participates in the wellness aspect of things in the workplace. Can you speak to some of the ways the silo has been merged between what you all do on the health and on the safety side, health and safety side versus the wellness side, to address those predispositions that may increase the likelihood for a poor outcome on your side of the fence?
Go first, sure. That's a great question. I have more of an occupational wellness background, studied kinesiology. So I used to work a lot with our wellness team. So I developed good relationships there, saw that there was an opportunity to reduce injuries by making people more resilient to injury. So I think traditional ergonomics, looks at like the hierarchy of controls and more physical safety. So those are the way I assume the different layers of protection, right? But we also have intrinsic layers of protection, right? So, taking care of your wellness, how well you recover, having opportunities to work with maybe athletic trainers. So company investing in athletic trainers. So I show up to work, I've got a kink in my neck, my shoulder, I got a tight back, I can have someone to work with and consult with. I think mental health is a big factor as well. So stress management. So getting people all these the resources and to develop the skills that they can that they can work on themselves to get those intrinsic layers to also help with the other extrinsic layers that are done through traditional ergonomics is I think key, and I think that's where it needs to move forward. For our company, we just recently removed wellness from our HR department into safety because of that. That we recognize that. So I think that's key, really, to making what you do people centric, and so that's more of a holistic approach.
So I've traditionally focused on more the physical risk factors and more the engineering side of ergonomics, but definitely have been exposed to a lot of wellness initiatives over the years. I think the way, so MSDs, right? When you have injuries, so you've got the personal factors, you've got them coupled with the physical factors, and then there's sort of and this is, just theory from years and years of research, and then you've got those like a gate of psychosocial factors that are going to impact how those physical risk factors and personal factors are manifested into your injury, right? So if you have good, locus of control, perceived social support, all these good structures are work, in theory, you're going to lessen your chance of actually having an injury as compared to if you don't have that. So these devices, particularly, I see wearable sensors particularly as maybe a means to create that culture, right? Of, you're important. We're giving you this personal information. Even exoskeletons, we care about you. So really to deliver this message. So I think they could, if done correctly, right? Because there's a chance you may not, right? Like, so it's, you must wear this, end of story. And we don't care what you have to say, right? You could do that too. I think they have a great possibility of impacting those psychosocial factors to reduce the risk of MSD manifestation if done appropriately. So we probably need more studies in that area, quite frankly, but it's just a theory.
One of the projects we did with wellness, and like I said, safety really touches everything, even, the VR stuff, which we're not able to discuss. But even there, right? I mean, there's some safety component. And one of the conferences that I just attended, safety is being put into basically the ground floor. So as people are designing buildings, processes, they actually have people now from safety being there. But the one project that I did with wellness actually had to do with hearing loss. And it was interesting because it ended up being a wearable that actually ended up being a solution. And the solution was a custom molded earplug, all right, where it's passive, there's no batteries, nothing. There's actually a filter in there that takes out certain frequencies as well as certain decibel levels. So as far as safety for us, I mean, it really is across the board. We do have a separate wellness group, but they focus more probably about, like diets and, those type of stuff, where EH&S kind of is more into addressing some of the bigger concerns or risks, I should say.
One of the things that you mentioned earlier was that you get reams and reams of data, especially on the biometric side, and you wonder what to do with that. So I'm in that position right now. We can measure facial recognition, pupil recognition, heartbeat, all kinds of different things, but sewing that together into something that tells us whether the participant is happy, sad, engaged, not engaged, more probably on the emotional side than anything else. Do you know of any universities, any companies that you would recommend that I could talk to or reach out to that are kind of cutting edge in that area or figuring that out?
And unfortunately, I can't recommend anybody officially, but there are companies out there, and I can speak to you on a personal note, who we used. But with that said, one of the things that we found out is how do you label the data and how consistent is it? So we did a kind of AI project to look at injuries and say, for instance, falls, trips, and slips. Well, this person wrote up this injury this way. Here's another. And we're like, oh my God, there's no way you could correlate any of this data because there was no structure on how that data was put together. And I think the first step is to see, what is that data that you're collecting? Is it structured? So therefore, if whatever you're looking at, okay, differentiates this from this. Otherwise, if somebody just puts in smiling or semi-smile or whatever, I mean, what does that actually mean, right? So you definitely have to have a structure if you really want to start analyzing this data, and it has to be consistent. And we looked at other utility companies to see if we could share information. Once again, they don't have a standard format. But if you really want to take a deep dive, you really have to say, okay, what is it that the machine learning is trying to catch? What are the key aspects of it? And do we have that structure put in place? So as we're collecting the data, we're collecting actually data that can be usable, not just like, what does this actually mean? That's definitely a big lesson learned there.
Is that information coming from wearable sensors, or where's it coming from? Lots of different. There's a couple of researchers. I can get with you and try to get their names. I know I've heard them speak about putting all that together from the wearable sensor perspective. There's one lady in Virginia Tech, and then there's another one, I forget where she's from. But again, they're trying to synthesize all that information. So that might be a start. So I can get with you after.
All right. Well, thank you so much for spending the lovely 45 minutes with us. Thank you, everyone. And thank you to this panel, as well as the AV team for turning on the AC because I was sweating bullets. So thank you, everyone, for joining.